All right. You must have passed your luck check because it
The No Class Podcast.
with your internet pals, Eddie.
And Matt.
So we've held back on the podcast a bit here, so we've come up with something really cool for our 25th show. It's Mr. Dark Trails, the Bacon Wizard, the Cat Daddy. Matt, put a little bit more sauce on that.
Roadworthy Judge David Baity of Stiff Whiskers Press, author of or contributor to Escape from Yule Mountain, Carnival of the Damned, Mutant Crawl Classics, American Survival Guide, Mind Games, Shambling Undead, The Gong Farmer's Almanac, and again, of course, Dark Trails, the wildly successful Kickstarter game. David Baity, say hi to the folks, David.
I'm sorry, man. That intro was pretty heavy. It kind of makes me feel like I'm somebody.
Yeah, well, we left out your poet, probably your most important accolade of all.
What's that?
Special guest, Long Con 2019.
Oh yeah. Well, you guys popped my cherry on that. That was my first con appearance as a guest, and let me just say, if you guys ever get the invite, you need to take it because these guys do it up right.
Well, thank you. You kind of get that we do our plugs right up at the front now, so we've already promoted us. Is there anything you'd like to promote?
Well, with the COVID madness, seems like a lot of things are being canceled here. I don't know if you guys are you guys going to do your, I know the one that just recently come up, you guys canceled that, I guess, right?
Oh, April's.
Yeah, it would have been last weekend.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a sad time. And you got another one coming up in the fall. Is that right?
Yeah, November. So hopefully that'll work out for us.
That's our traditional long con. So
keep dodging cooties. But as far as me, I'm definitely scheduled to go to Gen Con, and I think I'm probably going to try and do Game Hole just because Gary Con was canceled. But in all honesty, I've tried to kind of batten down the hatches and just keep the nose to the grindstone with Dark Trails because it's just so much going on, and I'm telling you, it could probably be a full-time job for at least 3 or 4 months. But doing that along with trying to play fireman every third day and go squirt water, it's some days it can be a bit of a task.
Yeah, I'll bet you're busier than a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest. Yeah, with your regular gig and all the work on Dark Trail.
Yeah, it's it's a lot. I guess when you write a few things here and there, you don't really understand the complexity that goes into being a publisher and wrangling additional writers and artists, and then there's just so many things that go along with it. But luckily I've got a lot of great folks in the community that are helping. Reed Filippo and Steve Newton, Joseph Goodman. There's no shortage of people in the DCC community that will just reach out at the drop of a dime to give you some advice. So I would probably say if it hadn't been for these guys, I don't even know if the Kickstarter would have actually launched. So it takes a lot out of you, but the good thing is you've got some mentors there that are just an arm's reach away.
Well, that's awesome to have that as an asset and a help. I mean, thank goodness. So sounds like you've got propeople propping you up and helping you out. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely helped out a lot, and of course, having Gil and Matt on the team with layout editing is good too. We've just turned in a huge chunk. The bestiary's complete with the book now, and it's going to be plugged into the layout. And I've gone about trying to figure out which pieces get art and who's going to do those. So I spent probably most of the day yesterday doing that. And it's funny because you think, oh well, I've got an entire day to spend some time writing today, and then by the time you order some swag and then you get taken care of all the bestiary stuff and getting everything assigned out, it's like been 8 hours has blown by, and you're like, shit, gonna do it.
Yeah, and then somebody begs you to do a podcast.
Yeah, Eddie beat me to it. Thank you again for, I know how busy you are. I appreciate you putting aside some of your vital time for us, man.
Yeah, no, I know we were supposed to do this a couple of months ago, maybe.
Well, we talked about it at the con, but it got so crazy at the con. So crazy.
Yeah, so it's almost kind of good in a way because I think, like I said, there's been a lot more progress, and just recently Michael Curtis turned in his stretch goal adventure, and it's awesome. I mean, it's like I'm going to tell you, Michael Curtis should be writing some DCC horror because it's almost like they kept him in a shack for 2 months, and he stored up all his nightmares and just spewed it all out this adventure because it is. I think everybody's going to really love it.
Well, no, he's good at it, like the dark stuff. At last year's NTRPG, I ran an MCC mod he wrote that you're thinking, all right, it's post-apocalyptic, but no, it's really got this horror element that me playing into it, and I had some theme music going in the room, and I mean, it had them on the edge of their seats. It had a real creep factor that it's subtle and it builds, it was great. He's fun.
Joseph, he's got the DCC horror category, and for some reason, Stephen Newton's been hogging all that. So it's just one of the things I commented when I read the adventure was, man, you need to be doing some of these Halloween adventures. And he said, Joseph won't let me do it. He's like, I want to do it. He's like, but he won't let me on those projects. So I guess he's saving Curtis for, the heavy hitters that are coming out for DCC. But it was just kind of funny because I was like, man, you're kind of demented, Michael. And he's kind of laughed, but he's come through, and we've got the other guys, Bob Brinkman, who's doing one. He says he's pretty close to completion. So everything's kind of coming together on the stretch goals. I hope everything will kind of drop at about the same time the book's ready to go to the printer, so we can just knock it all out.
Cool. So I know.
All right. Well, it seems like. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know that like you're super busy, like between work and the book, but being a long-time gamer, have you found any chance to blow off some steam?
It's funny you say that because I'm not a big online gamer type, but with everything that's been going on with COVID, I went ahead and I didn't do it in time to actually run anything for the Cyclops Con, but tonight I'll be running my second session on Roll20, and I'm trying to get it to where I guess I feel comfortable enough to do some Dark Trails with it. But I do like the fact that Roll20's got like cards. So, for anyone who's played Dark Trails, they know there's a gun deck, and I think there's also some things that you can do for tokens, but for bennies and bennies, listen to me, for boons and hexes. I was in Savage Worlds for a second there.
Yep.
But I think it's as an old grognard like I am, I think it's just there's an adjustment getting used to it. But I think once you kind of figure your way around it, and God, I've probably watched hours of tutorials on it on YouTube, but I think it's definitely something viable. And I like the idea of like, hooking up with you guys one evening and running some stuff. That's definitely an element to it that I think is something that will appeal to a lot of people because, sometimes you can't get your home groups together by the table, and that pushes you into the online, I guess, doing the online thing. But then you think about it, and you've got, all your buddies that you only get to see at the cons a few times a year. Who's to stop you from getting together with those guys for an impromptu session sometimes?
Yeah. But you're definitely preaching to the choir as far as the big adjustment to online gaming.
Yeah, it's it definitely has its shortcomings, but I think that it also has some pluses as well. So I tried that first session, and it went, and it was a funnel, and because I figured what I would do is just run DCC for my home group since we can't get together a couple times a month, and I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know about this, but they're like, man, this was a lot of fun. So I actually put a little more work into it. I got my little tokens together and my little audio files. So I'm going to try and, be a DJ tonight on Roll20.
Awesome. Eddie?
Oh, well, thank you, sir. We know you're no stranger to the world of podcasts here. I've been listening to some of the old Sanctum episodes.
Yeah, I always joke that I was just the proverbial Wookiee in that group because those guys are way smarter than I am. So they have these intellectual conversations about these books, and I'm kind of like the comedic element that just kind of points and says, "What's that?" and laughs. And they got Mark Bruner doing that now. He's much better suited to be have those types of conversations because I like picture books and pop-ups and stuff like that.
Well, since you've had to make the rounds lately, is there one question that you've got completely tired of that you don't want to get asked anymore?
That's actually a good question in and of itself, but I haven't done a podcast in several months, so I've kind of forgot because I've taken one too many blows to the head growing up. Short-term memory, so maybe that serves me well in this. So I wouldn't say that there are any questions that bother me. So if you got anything you want to ask, you just fire away, Eddie.
All right, we got some good ones, I think.
Oh, Lord.
Anyway, but no, seriously, this is just my personal opinion, but in my limited experience, you're one of the rare authors that actually run a great game. And we had the privilege of playing with you at NTRPG. I have a couple different times, and Eddie as well. And so, just wanted to let you know that, I mean, like there's some people that are very talented at making material that's just mind-blowing, but then I've played games with them and you go, yeah, okay, they can write an amazing model, but they can't necessarily run a great game. I mean, they run an adequate game, but we just want to let you.
You're talking about Brendan, right?
Huh?
You're talking about Brendan, right?
Well, you know what? Now, I was going to try not to dominate the damn podcast, but I will interject. It's kind of a hell of a note. We run a con, and you'd figure, boy, that must be nice. And no, it's like I didn't get to play with you or Brendan at the damn con, and I was kind of butthurt. I'm like, well, what's the damn point of me running a con if I don't even get to play with our special guests, But these are the sacrifices.
Yeah, this is all for us to get bennies.
Huh?
It's all for us to get bennies.
Yeah, but I was going to say, these are the sacrifices we make for the people we do the con for. It's all for you. But anyway.
Well, I'll tell you,
we did get to play at NTRPG, which was a really great game.
Oh yeah, that was a great game.
Was that the slaughterhouse with the guy with the pig head running through the streets?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's the first time I've been scared in a game in a long time. So I give you the props. An old jaded guy like me can get scared in a game.
That was a good session, but you guys are great players, so don't sell yourself short because a lot of times you get a group and they're digging into their Facebook feeds and they're kind of they're half there, half in, half out. They'll come back in and roll a dice and then they'll tip back out and go check something out. But when you've got a good group that keeps the phone checks to a minimum and really kind of, I guess, adds a little bit to the session, that's huge, man. Because I've had some humdingers at some of the cons I've gone through the years, and it's a test. I say as the older I get, my patience kind of grows thinner and thinner and thinner. So I fully expect one day at some con I'll probably just have a meltdown and go into a fetal position and start crying.
Well, I was going to say specifically in that game you ran for us, there was a little kid that was a little disinterested. But you did a fantastic job of keeping him engaged.
You drew that kid in. Actually, that was the Moors, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was who?
The Moors. Grady and what's his brother? Ryan, I think.
Yeah, Grady. That's right.
Grady?
Yeah. They're great. They're great guys. And their kids.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he
yeah.
The only time that kid lights up is when he blows his own dad's head off in game.
Well, I mean, what child wouldn't live for that?
Oh yeah, no, that's true. I mean, that's happened I think twice, if I'm not mistaken. Because Grady and his boy, they always get into the games when they can. So
yeah.
Those are a great group of guys. You guys, I'm gonna have to move to Texas. I think once I get out of the fire industry, I'm gonna have to move to Texas.
Hell yeah, God's country, come on.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll show up to every one of our cons as long as you're there. So
exactly, I think that's how we got them, was because we had David. You know.
Yep.
Do you guys have tornadoes there?
Oh God, yeah.
No, never. Shut up,
Well,
Matt.
I thought one good thing about Greenville, South Carolina, is I'm 50 years old and I was born and raised here. Never had to deal with a tornado, but the other night we had a tornado rip through my fire district. I was off duty, thankfully, because they ran like 48 calls in, I think, 4 hours. But, I was sitting here on the third floor of my apartment, and I'm like, where the hell am I going to go on the third floor of my apartment? So
straight out.
I just got to order a chicken wing. So I just ate my chicken wings and the power went out. And I was like, well, hell, I guess if I bite it, I bite it,
Yep.
But if I'm getting tornadoes here, I might as well move to Texas.
There you go. But I mean, God bless y'all. I hope there wasn't, too much damage or loss of life. I hope.
No. Actually, it could have went a lot worse. Nobody, as far as I know, nobody got hurt. It was just a lot of trees fell, and it's just weird, man. It was probably, I bet you, it was less than a half a mile away from my apartment, and it just hit the boulevard and ran up. I think it was window shopping.
Yeah. Wow.
So we fall barely tornado.
You know what they call that, Eddie? That's clean living.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was looking out for us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right. Speaking of running games, you're kind of the music and prop master, and you were talking about doing a little DJing tonight. What are some cool examples that you could give us of props that GMs at home can make without too much fuss?
Well, props wise, that's something that's new with the online thing. But I can tell you that I don't know if you guys use Spotify or not, but that's like my main go-to for audio streaming. And one of the things Roll20 has done is I think they got rid of SoundCloud, so you don't have as much access to things as you used to with music. So that's been kind of a hard thing for me, is just to try and find a way to interject some sound effects and some background music without I don't know. There's an app that you can use called Watch Together, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a long way to work around it, but you can actually make a playlist on YouTube and then link up on that on Watch Together, so that everybody's kind of on the same. Basically, you're playing music and everybody can hear that. But as far as the props, man, I'm still trying to get the I guess the online thing going. So I'll have to get back to you on that. Now with at the table, that's something that the props are things that it's kind of rare that I'll go through the efforts, especially these days when I've got so much going on. But that was you're probably pulling from Sanctum on that. Are they still doing that on Sanctum, where they have the props?
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff was really cool, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't use a whole lot of props in my games. When you look at Dark Trails, you got hexes and boons, and you got gun decks, and if I threw some props out there, you wouldn't be able to see me. I'd be covered up on the table. So.
Well, sometimes I think it turns into prop comedy too.
Yeah,
you just have too many things in the box.
It depends on the group. I mean, it really does. But you can go on Spotify, and man, there's so many like the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's so many soundtracks on there, so that's always a go-to when I run Dark Trails. I'll throw that up here at home, but you can't. I haven't found a way yet to use Spotify in a game, and that kind of sucks because I'm paying, I guess, $10 a month or whatever for that. So I don't know if maybe you guys have a solution to that, or maybe you use a different kind of service or method for
it. Here in the game room, I've got a Bose thing that I can stream music from my phone to the Bose, And so I
Okay.
can queue up a playlist from my phone and set it for a Bluetooth or whatever, and I can stream it over to my little Bose player or whatever. So that's one thing.
Okay, but you guys, I'm guessing as far as the online gaming, you're kind of like me. You're just getting your feet a little wet in it. Is that right?
Yeah, that we've got a buddy of ours younger that that's like, oh hey, let's do it, and I'm almost there, but I don't think Eddie's quite there yet.
Well, I ran one for Cyclops Con, but
That's true.
it just doesn't give you the same sitting around the table. But I probably gaming.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think that's something you're going to get. I mean, there may be some other elements of it that are, that make it worth the effort, but you're definitely, it's not the same as sitting at the table and, laughing and gaming the way it is online. Because online is kind of like this, where you got a long pause because one of us doesn't know who's going to talk next. It's the same kind of thing. So, but I mean, it's definitely, I like the idea of like saying, hey, call up the long con guys and let's do a session. I mean, that's something that I never thought about before, actually trying to get in on the platform. So that could be something that happens down the road.
Yeah, I would think it would be really good for
Absolutely.
play testing too.
Definitely. I know Michael Curtis. I know Michael has I think he wears a hearing aid. He has some hearing issues, but I noticed lately he's actually ran a few sessions online. So if he's getting into it, then there's definitely something to be said about it.
And I seem to remember Brendan saying something along the lines of like, he'll get an idea for something, want to play test it. He'll just jump online. And even if it's 2:00 in the morning, there's people in Germany or something that'll join in his games that, know English well enough. Something like, it seemed like he told us something like, I could be making this up.
I could see Brendan LaSalle running a game with an online table of people who don't even know how to speak English and still pulling it off. I mean,
What's nice when you can just
insane.
snap your fingers and the table appears for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to run a game, and it's full.
Yeah. Those DCC celebrities, they're kind of snobbish,
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're kind of jumping around. So I know that, like you said, you've had great success with your Kickstarter. That's still underway. But to make ends meet, you're a firefighter. As we've I think mentioned in the podcast. How long have you been a firefighter, Dave?
Started when I was 19, so I think it's maybe 31, 32 years. I'll be 51 this month. So.
Oh wow! Well, hey.
Well, I'll just add in this is a podcast of heroes now.
Okay, yeah, it's getting thick.
Yeah, let's
think about
not
it. You
spread
should be
that.
saluting.
Okay.
Salute this podcast.
Oh.
Well, you got a nurse. Thank you for your service.
Hey, you're worth
Front lines. Thank you.
Yeah, we got a nurse, a firefighter, and a soldier. So yeah.
Sounds like a survival of a post-apocalyptic group for an RPG.
Yeah, that's what we're rolling up.
Yeah.
I actually got to play a firefighter at Long Con. I think it was I can't remember the gentleman's name that ran the Rifts game.
Was it Sean?
Yeah, it was Sean. He's a nice guy, but
really
I picked the firefighter. And I figured if that's one character I could probably play.
Yeah, I was laughing because I think a number of people commented on that. You seem tickled to get to, after all these years, play a firefighter in a game. So
yeah, it was kind of fun. I'd like to think that I built my entire career up for that moment.
Mr. Eddie.
All right, so usually we like to ask people how they got into the fantasy thing in general, but I guess you've been playing since you were playing D&D since you were a little kid.
Yeah, I think I started around 8 years old. We moved into a new house when I was just a wee lad, and there was a kid in the neighborhood. He was probably about three years older than me, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing, but we had a lot of fun with it. And I don't ever remember not having we went from D&D to Gamma World. We did a lot of Gamma World and then Marvel superheroes, and then I got all emo and played Vampire Masquerade for a while. And, yeah, then I stopped cutting and wearing trench coats, and I shouldn't say that. I was never a cutter. I did wear a trench coat. That was pre-Columbine, though.
Yeah, the mafia.
But I went from World of Darkness and then went back to D&D. So yeah, I mean, I've always I did get to a point though. I think when 3.0 D&D came out, it was so crunchy, and I was running a game the way I normally run games, and players were just doing off the wall shit legally. I'm like, my poor monsters, what are you guys trying to do here? Yes, they were metagaming, and that kind of turned me off. So, and that was before I think the old school, kind of came back into the fold. So I think I might have kind of taken a little bit of time off from it from there, but eventually got back at it. We even did some Warhammer Fantasy for a while, and Star Wars D6, West End, that seems to be everybody's favorite. So, yeah, I've always been gaming, man. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just in my blood, just like it's in you, I'm sure it's in your blood as well.
Oh, yeah. I've always been a gamer. I mean, whether it was board games or role-playing games or video games, that's a big part of my life, always has been.
Yeah, but I guess kind of for the Southerners, I came into it later, and I can just imagine if I'd had the books back in the day, those would have went into the fire or something immediately. That devil game.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I had buddies, unfortunately, that went through that growing up, like in high school. One particular really good friend, he would go through phases where he'd say, I can't play anymore. And then a month or two, he'd show up and he'd start throwing dice again. But yeah, his parents would confiscate his stuff. My mom never did. She really encouraged me to be a Luciferian and do a lot of ritual sacrifices.
Yeah. My parents just didn't care, like, whatever, as long as you're not annoying us, go away.
Well, yeah, I mean, as long as you're not doing drugs and you're at least making decent grades. I mean, I was a CD student in school, but I was more interested in having fun in high school. I was always getting into mischievous trouble, but I had a great mom that, she kind of let me roam, she let me do my thing. And that's one thing I can definitely thank her for.
Yeah. We might be the last generation of just latchkey, wander around, do your own thing, generation.
Yeah, be home by supper.
Yeah, that's true. Kids these days, man, I mean, it's cool to be a nerd. Back in my day, we played D&D in the art room at lunch and tried to avoid the football players because we'd get, get our heads tossed in a toilet or whatever. So, now all the girls are into it, and
oh yeah, where were all the hot girls playing D&D when I was young?
I'm like, you young whippersnappers don't know the day I used to have to walk 10 miles just to go to the art room and throw dice and dodge the football players, and the girls wouldn't have a thing to do with me. Yeah. It's like they got it made.
Yeah.
So that's like crotchety old man coming out of me.
That's the whole thing. That's the whole seed of our podcast here. Crotchety old men shout at the sky.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I had to, do Thaco uphill both ways, Anyway, so I guess I read it somewhere or heard it, probably a fallacy, but your what is your first true love is post-apocalyptic. Is that a true statement, David?
Yes. I'll tell you something. It's kind of funny because before Dark Trails came out of the birth canal, I was dead set on doing a post-apocalyptic DCC game. And I mean, you already had America, which is a great game. Not taking anything at all from Reed, but when you have I had my own kind of idea what I wanted to do, and then I learned about this MCC playtest thing and this Jim Wappler guy. So that shot that to shit right immediately. Which that's great because I'm glad MCC came out, but once that happened, I just kind of I put that idea on the shelf, and we were just we'd run a DCC campaign for probably about a year, and I was starting to get the itch to do something else, and we did try some Savage World, which is, fine and a great game, but you just, anybody that's played DCC that loves DCC, I think that when you go to another game, it's just kind of, it calls back to you. I mean, there's something about that game and that system that you miss the lunacy of it, and you miss the elements that I guess that make it DCC. So we kind of played Savage World for probably about a month, Deadlands, and I was basically running the Dark Trails ideas and games. The adventures were kind of coming together, and I think we all missed the class element of DCC. Mm-hmm. And I've always been a strong proponent of a game is made by the classes that are available. So I used to love Rifts. I didn't really like the system, but I loved the idea and the classes that Palladium Games had in the Rifts game. But so we took a while off, and then I spent a couple of weeks coming up with a lot of, I guess all the classes that are still around in Dark Trails, and everybody seemed to dig it. So it just kind of went from there.
Well, you walked right into my next question. What is your personal favorite Dark Trails class?
That's a good question. The few times I've been able to play, there's different things. I think the one that the two that seem to draw more attention at the table are the Luchador. Everybody loves the Luchador. And the Calavera. People like the Calavera a lot. I tend to go for the Tommyknocker just because I just, I'm a glass half empty kind of guy. So that's kind of you die and you don't get to go to the afterlife. So you got to come back and reanimate that infested, maggot corpse to walk around. And that's just, I don't know. I like not the qualities. I like the tropes or the opportunities to role play that kind of guy, that's just, you're going to catch a lot of hell from the other players, and you stopping in town to try and find some essential oil so you don't smell so bad. And he's got to stitch himself up. If he gets his arm whacked off, the Revelator can't heal him. He's got to basically either get somebody to help him, or he's got to sit there and stitch his arm back together. So,
yeah, I was going to say,
I dig that a lot.
Me and Matt probably right now would both love to be the Revelator, just for the RP. What do you think on that, Matt?
Well, in fact, the first game I played with Baity, I played a Revelator, and I had a lot of fun with it.
I think, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not blowing smoke up my own ass, but I think that, there's a class in there for everybody. Some people hate steampunk, and I'm not a big steampunk fan, but, the Bedlamite, I'd like to think he's a kind of a cooler version of the steampunk kind of thing, because he's half crazy. And but I do think that the class is we're actually trying to figure out that 12th class, because with the Kickstarter, there was a bonus class. We figured we'd go ahead and make it 12, and we're starting to kind of narrow it down. So I'm hoping that the 12th class will maybe be announced pretty soon. And we may even do a poll of some sort to see what people think, but I've got a couple ideas I think are pretty cool on that.
Can we get a little something, or is it under wraps completely?
Nobody will hear but us.
No, there's a few that we're kicking around. One idea, and I'm not so sure about this, is an automaton that is kind of like, the Lich, when they kind of their souls are kept in those phylacteries, I think, if I'm saying that right. But so I was thinking like a Bedlamite who, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a Bedlamite, but just say a spirit that kind of, or a Bedlamite who dies. Actually, his spirit goes into the automaton and kind of animates it. He loses the ability to be a Bedlamite, but now he's this big clunky dude, Iron Golem type fella. It could be like runs off of whiskey or coal or something. And so there's that. And we're also thinking about kind of like a hedge wizard. Yeah. Some of the history of the South, the magic and the things that they did. We were thinking about basing not necessarily a full-fledged spellcaster, but just someone who can do like little minor magics, and then there's also some discussion of like a voodoo type character who doesn't. I don't want to introduce a whole new selection of spells, because right now I hate spells, guys. I'm going to tell you, DCC spells are fun, but when you're writing them, there's like 200 going into the Dark Trails book, and I'm 50 in, and this is going to be the biggest chunk of the book. So once it's done, I think it's going to be all downhill. But anyway, I didn't want to have to worry about creating a whole new section of spells. So the idea is the voodooing guy actually can channel and summon spirits that actually, depending on, like Baron Samedi, might give him some kind of special ability that he could use. So he'd have access to a pantheon of spirits, the Lao, if I'm saying it right, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, which is basically the pantheon of voodoo spirits, gods, whatnot. So,
what do they call it? Hogans or something? What is it? If I mispronounce
yeah. There you go. Yep, Hogans are, and there and again, I'm sure I'm massacring the words I'm saying, but
me too.
So we've got some decent ideas, I think. We had originally had an idea for a naysayer, and the naysayer, it's a cool idea in that the guy just absolutely does not believe in the supernatural. So just in that fact, he kind of creates like chaos around creatures and spells, that's weird effects. But I don't know if that actually would hold up very well compared to the other classes, because anybody that's played Dark Trails, they realize there's a whole bevy of abilities and powers that each class has. So, so we'll figure it out.
Now I'm probably stepping right into a whole big old nets of rattlesnakes here, but so a big part of the Old West, I would think, was Native Americans. Is that sort of a unacceptable area to step into? I mean, under the current, I don't know. I'm going to stop now. I'm behind.
You're going to stop now and throw it on me, right?
I already read an interview where you answered it, David.
No, I'm going to be honest with you. When I keep saying we, but there's only one Dave. When the Kickstarter was getting ready to launch, I had every intent of, I was going to try and do like a Mystic Dog Soldier, because I did a lot of reading and watching a lot of documentaries, and there's just so many elements of Native American history that you could pull from to make. But this is, Matt, what you're trying to say is this is a very strange time that we find ourselves in, where people can get offended very easily, and you definitely want to do that. You want everybody to have a good time. So,
right.
The Native American elements. I've had some very prominent people in the RPG industry tell me to leave them out of the book entirely. And, I'm not doing that. I mean, that's just, you can't have the West and not have Native Americans in the Old West.
Yeah, I mean, I would think anything like that, it's all about intent. And if it's not in a matter that's respectful of them and their heritage or something, but like you said, even given that, there's going to be somebody who's going to find a reason or way to be offended, So.
Yeah. And so you've got and I'm going to tell you guys, that's probably been the biggest, I don't want to say problem, but it's just the one thing that I've tried really hard to come up with a good way to handle. And I have reached out to Native American authors in the RPG field, probably 3 or 4. There's not a lot when you go looking. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot more out there, but just in my searches, I think I found maybe 4, and they were just all too busy. They got their own things going on, so that leaves me back to square one. And I don't know what's going to end up. I hope that everybody's okay with what is done. I just plan on not. You definitely don't want to throw all the tribal nations into the melting pot, and I don't think that's the way to handle it. So what I'm probably going to do is touch on it lightly and, maybe do some suggestions. But, if you guys want to run a campaign based around or that involve Native Americans, I think that it's something that you should just do a little homework on and try your best to be respectful. And, there are a few folks that, have Native American ancestry in the community that I've reached out to. And so, I mean, nothing will be put out that hasn't been put under some eyes, just to make sure that, it does, I guess, it's not going to piss off anybody. I definitely don't want to do that, but I'm also not going to be that guy that just, well, I'm just going to pull everything out. But if I do that, then I'm going to have to take every beast and creature that has any kind of folklore relating to Native American history, and then I might as well go ahead and take the Calavera and the Luchador out. I mean, it's a slippery slope, and so I'm just going to try and do my best, and hopefully folks that know me, will understand that and appreciate what's in there.
Well, actually, David, I was reading an interview that you did a little while back, and what you'd said on that one, because they hit you with that one, was that it was kind of like you didn't really need a race as a class, which I agree with. You can be any of these 12 classes.
Yeah, I do, but
whatever background you want, and as a player, that's your choice. You do you.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you could take a Native American, could be a Tommyknocker. As a matter of fact, the artwork for the Tommyknocker is a Native American, but you could do that certainly. But in a way, there are a lot of really good. There's a lot of material that you could use on your own if you wanted to. I mean, you could do a shaman. You could do the dog soldier. You could do a skinwalker. You could do a lot of things that borrow from, the folklore of that. But, as far as in the book, I think it's best just to leave it to where it doesn't matter if you're an Irish immigrant or a Navajo or, if you want to be a Bedlamite, then, that should I think that should be okay.
When you've got enough irons in the fire anyway. So, I mean, that's one less thing to have to wrestle with right now. And maybe you could coordinate with one of these people that are in gaming in the future for some supplement, so.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, I don't know if people understand or not. I don't know, there are a huge portion, I think, of backers for Dark Trails that probably weren't in the DCC community when it launched. So they probably don't understand this, but I'll say this to anybody. If you've got something you want to put out with Dark Trails, do it. I'm all for having the world grow, and it's not like I'm wanting to cut out anything. I just want to see people use the game and do their own thing. And I'm sure, that's what Joseph Goodman has done with DCC. He welcomes any and everybody to basically create under his umbrella. And I think it's an awesome, I guess that you've got that going on now with D&D and even Savage Worlds now, but Joseph was doing this, I don't know, 6 years ago, or
right.
How long's DCC been out now? I guess 7 years, maybe.
I thought it was 2010. Maybe when they first started working on it, the beta and whatnot. So
yeah, I came into it a little late, but to me, that's such an amazing thing, because it just gives you that platform to create your own thing and share it with other people, whether it's a fanzine or your own module. And there's some great stuff out there. So
that's what I've told people. There's just the one core book, but then if people go, well, I want more material, I go, man, there are so many people that love this game that have produced so much really great quality free content that's out there on the internet. It's out there and you can find it. And so, and no one's ever tried to inhibit that. Like you say, I think you're saying, and it's great that just how much the fans love the game and love producing all this. Someone has a cool idea and boom, if you probably think of something, someone's already done it and it's out there, for DCC.
Yeah, it's definitely getting that way now. There's so many people creating stuff, but I think with the Dungeons and Dragons, do you know what that's called? Their online thing, is it?
Oh, the DM Guild
used to be the.
Yeah. I think they take a percentage or something of whatever you put up there for sale. So and there's nothing wrong with that, but Goodman, he doesn't really ask for anything, and that I feel the same way. I think it's just flattering for anybody to whether you're picking up the Golem Farmer's Almanac or John Watson's running his Hell Train. People that are coming up with their own adventures. Eric Young's got something that he wrote up that eventually I'm sure will see some light of day. There's just so many guys that have already wrote things for Dark Trails, and it's such a flattering feeling to have somebody take your idea and slab their icing on the cake. I just think that's awesome.
All right, while we're in DCC, I was going to ask about Carnival of the Damned, or probably when I run it, it'd be Carnival of the Damned Good Looking. But that module is just jam-packed with so many ideas. You really put everything into that. So I was going to ask you a little bit about that, about how it was to just write something with that much stuff packed into it, and see if there was any Ravenloft influence on you, and if you had been a Ravenloft fan.
It's funny because when I finished that adventure, I think that book is like 100 and
it's like
some odd pages.
127
Most adventures are 20 or 30 pages. Yeah, and I was like, I'm never doing this again. I'm never going to write this book. And my very next project is a damn 600 plus page book. No, Carnival. The funny thing is anybody that loves DCC, you want to share it with other people. So at the time, I think they had the D&D encounters, and so I played in Harley Stroh. I think he ran the first DCC tournament at Gen Con. If I'm not mistaken, I think that, and I was like, man, this would be an awesome way to introduce people to the game, because you sit down, grab a character sheet, you play for 10, 15 minutes or more, and if you get killed, you don't have to stay. You can get up and walk out. So we were going to Dragon Con. I want to think it was 2015, and I can remember being in the back seat while my girlfriend was driving and just typing up encounters. And I just thought that the Carnival would make the perfect platform for that, because you go from tent to tent and you could just have different encounters. So, it went from there to some other cons, and people really liked it. So Jen Brinkman actually suggested that I pitch it to John Marr, who does Purple Sorcerer, and John dug it, and he said, I would suggest you put a story to it, and that's kind of how everything developed. And so it just went from there, and man, it's just every time I say, hey, let's do this, John will be like, okay. So it's just so packed with so many things. But yeah, Ravenloft is probably my second favorite campaign.
Yeah.
I've always loved Planescape, but I do love Ravenloft. So the myths in the Carnival of the Dam were definitely. I can remember playing in Ravenloft and the myths just frustrating the shit out of me. And I'm like, how do you corral players and keep players from doing something? Well, you put a pink mist in there that won't let you do what you want to do when you're not supposed to do it.
Yeah, and I could definitely
there you
see
go.
the Dark Jester being a Dark Lord, and I could see that traveling around all the different lands.
Yeah, it's funny because you bringing that up. Lately, I've been. One of the things I've never got rid of was my Planescape stuff, and that stuff is the Planescape stuff on eBay it goes for bang. But I've also been wanting to pick up some things I've sold over the years, and that's one of them I've been eyeballing is the Ravenloft box set, because I kind of, in a way, I've been kind of wanting to either kind of tweak that and convert it like. You guys know Chris? I think it's Lorcella. I think is his last name.
Yeah. Doc.
He always he runs the Against the Giants in DCC, and I was like, man, that'd be kind of cool to do like a Planescape or a Ravenloft setting with a DCC rule set. But so yeah, I've been kind of eyeballing that stuff on eBay.
I'm
it's funny you bring it up.
Ravenloft fan, as everybody already knows, but that one it got me right in the feels right there. Where I was like, this is my jam.
He is a freak for Ravenloft.
Well, I guess the next time I see you, you're going to have to run us through a Ravenloft game then.
Well, I've done a Temple of Elemental Evil many times where the mists come into the moat house. So I kind of blend that together.
So, that's a great idea.
Hell, he used Village of Pomlet. He had the mist roll in. As soon as he said the stranger mist, I was like, God
whenever
damn
you play with me, you're playing Ravenloft. You just might not know it yet.
Pretty much. Yeah, you just don't know.
That's awesome.
Glowing eyed blue.
You guys now, you're like, this damn mist. When are they going to come in?
I know it's somewhere. Yeah. It's in these chests as soon as you open up the treasure.
Yeah.
Have you done any 5e stuff, Eddie? Or I was going to ask you how you felt about the Ravenloft.
Oh yeah, I run 5e. Death House all the time, and I don't know if you're familiar with that one at all. That has
no.
And I've actually built the dollhouse.
Oh, yeah, sweet!
So I'm not the prop guy. I'm the first one to be like,
yeah.
You don't need toys. You don't have to bring toys in here. But people love that, and that's such an obvious prop because there's a dollhouse in the adventure, and the dollhouse is the exact same as the actual house that they're adventuring in. So you can use that to move their figures around in, and I've got all these skull pillars now that Matt's going to paint up.
You guys send me some
I think it's going to look really good.
Yeah, I want to see some pictures of it.
People
and one more on let's see what we're talking the Carnival here is I wanted to say that I appreciate you adding in so much of the backstory about why does he become as evil as he is, what happened to him. That stuff that only the GM really gets to read. I appreciate when you put that stuff in.
Yeah, that's another, I guess you'd say, Ravenloft element, because a lot of the domain lords are, kind of tragic. Their backstories are tragic, and that's I don't know where that kind of came from, but yeah, I'll be honest with you. Like the first few times I ran that, I've actually pulled some tears out of people at the table on that. So it's nothing like making somebody cry at the table
after he's killed your character.
There's only one other time I made a little girl cry at the table, and I think it's one of these times where people would applaud me, but it was in a Michael Curtis. It was it might have been a play test for Metamorphosis Alpha. I can't remember, but this kid was the brattiest kid I have ever dealt with at the table. She just did everything opposite of what the group wanted to do. Running around screaming as a character. I mean, it was just one of those things where you're like, God, how much longer are we going to be doing this? But so we were in this big fight, and her character had gotten into an elevator, I believe, and was going up. Well, I didn't even think anything about it. I was in the middle of the fight, and I used a power mutation called Death Field Generation, which sucks, hit points from everybody in the area. It was one of those last ditch kind of efforts, and I didn't even think about it. So I used the power, and I think the encounter was over. And then the elevator came back down, and the little girl's character was dead because of Death Field Generation. And I've still got a picture of this kid. She would not talk to anybody. She was so pissed. Michael Curtis even tried to give her another character. She wouldn't play another character. So that's one of my crowning moments of cons, is making a little girl cry. Probably not. She's probably like mainline and coke or heroin somewhere now, and it's obviously me.
Oh man! So Eddie has to ask about Ravenloft. He loves Ravenloft. Well, like why I mentioned post-apocalypse earlier. I love anything post-apocalyptic, and so I saw, as I mentioned in the intro, that you contributed to MCC and the American Survival Guide. Can I ask what portion did you contribute? I'm just curious.
Yeah, sure. I think it's been so long ago with the America, I did the Buddy O'Burger patron write-up.
Oh, cool.
I think, I handled that. And then same thing with MCC. I did two of the patrons, Urkur, I think's his name, and Haley, which was kind of a homage to one of the Sketch kids. So, yep, I don't know. They just trust me to do patrons for some reason. That's all I've done.
Well, I mean, you did a great job, because that's one of the real standout patrons, Buddy O'Burger. Gets a really interesting reaction from players. And Haley's really, but both those patrons from, so hey, bravo, man,
Yeah, no, that's one of the things. The weird thing is I've got this, I call it the Room of Doom. When I moved into this apartment, rather than get a storage building, I put all of my RPG stuff in the second bedroom. So, and the other day, this is how sad I mean, dude, if I took a picture of it, you guys would be both in wonderment, and you would probably accuse me of being a hoarder. I actually fell. I fell the other day, and here's something I'll share with you. I was naked. I was walking around trying to find a book naked.
Thanks
and
for that
turned
visual,
around.
David.
And it was one of those things where you were tumbling, and you're tumbling, and you can't do a damn thing about it. So you just go with it. And man, I'm going to tell you, the people downstairs under me probably thought a herd of gorillas had just dropped out of the sky. So, but yeah, I was like, man, I've got like 6 copies of MCC. I think they're like mutating, or they're maybe they're reproducing when I'm leaving them in the dark. But I'm definitely wanting to try and get into some MCC, because I do have some ideas. I ran an adventure several years ago that I came up with called Death by Disco, and it was a blast, and it was an MCC adventure. So I once Dark Trails is gone, I'd like to do something for MCC.
Awesome. Well, I ran a post-APOC campaign for a while using your DCC as the core engine, but I was culling stuff from all over the place. And talking about the Tommyknocker, I liked it so much, that class. I put it in my post-apocalyptic campaign, but I explained it as kind of a weird, like pseudo-magical disease or whatever. But otherwise, I use the class intact as is, because it's just, like you said, it's rife with great role-playing opportunities, you know.
No, that's awesome, man. You know, it's funny. I don't have a lot of time to branch out. I have so many different things that I like. I'll dwell on it for like an hour, and then I'll like slap myself in the face and say, "Get back to Dark Trails, asshole," because you got to focus on that. But I think it would be really cool to do like a post-apocalyptic, either an adventure that could also do a supplement. But you know, what would happen if the Elder Gods actually they win, you know, and the world is thrown into this like post-apocalyptic, horrific kind of scene, and you still got the Dark Trails classes. How would they be evolved, you know, like a 50, 75, 100 years into the future, that kind of deal. So that's kind of cool that you did that, because I've thought about that as well, as how would things be if, you know, in the end of things, we do end up, you know, going under the, I guess, the enslavement of the Elder Gods. You know, how would things be? And you have these little splinter cells of Dark Trails-esque characters. And so I think it's kind of cool that you can do that, and it's kind of it's neat to hear that you did that, even if it's just with one class.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, let's face it. I think all three of us appreciate DCC in that, as that core engine and all the material that's been produced by different people we've talked about. And you can cull things in and out very easily, and they blend in.
Oh yeah,
you know. I mean, and so
it's an a la carte system, I think.
Yeah, it's one of its strengths.
Speaking of a la carte, you walked into another one of my questions while we're talking about your greatest hits here. Everybody's got their favorite DCC module that they will run everywhere. Mine is Shambling Undead. And I didn't know until I was really looking at it the other day.
Oh,
Wormtooth Abbey. That's always been my favorite encounter, because you can mix and match on that one and fit it to your time slot. But I will always have Wormtooth Abbey. You're always going to hit that part of the adventure.
And he gets the most visceral reactions from people from that part of the adventure. He gets the most visceral reaction.
People just don't like having their teeth yanked out, do they?
No, they'll cringe. They're white knuckling the table just hearing the descriptions. They're cringing in their chairs.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I could tell you this, though. I mentioned it earlier. The Michael Curtis adventure is called Nest of Snakes. And there's some cringe-worthy moments in that adventure, man. I tell you, he's done some good stuff with it.
Awesome.
Because that's the real point of the podcast. As me and Matt have done that one as a competitive mod with 2 different tables. So we kind of rewrote Wormtooth Abbey. And in the other temple that you go into, you get your eyeball yanked out with an ice cream scoop and a slug dropped in. So we were trying to stay true to it.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
But
that is awesome.
That one's very well received. If you've played DCC with me, you've played Shambling.
Oh, yeah.
If you played DCC with Matt, Sailors, right? Yeah, that's true.
Hole in the sky. Get it straight.
That's a good one. I love the premise of changing your birth auger. That's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah, the whole wheel at the end and everything, and the lady in blue. But anyway, that's a whole other deal.
I'll say this before we jump to something else. A little tip for anybody who's writing or creating adventures. When you're watching TV and something makes you kind of draw up, like I got a buddy at the fire department. He cannot watch anything where somebody's eyeballs are being messed with. So, like, you know, the Parasite TV shows, you know, where there's a little worm scrolling around their eye. I have a secret little stash on my phone. Like, if something kind of makes me kind of cringe a little bit, I will write it down and just try and use those if you can. Because if it bothers you, I guarantee you, 3 out of 6 people at your table are going to be drawn up in a knot when you like go to pulling on those teeth with pliers.
Oh yeah, I'm like, I have a little notes section. I love the thing about smartphones that you can put notes. As soon as I think about something, I pop that open and I make a little note real quick before I forget. Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
That's what I do.
Yep. Now, and like you're talking about the things that people fear, and there's some things you don't really realize, but if you think about it, you're like, I guess so. Holes. Some people are scared of holes.
Oh yeah, especially people that are claustrophobic.
Yeah. So I had an adventure once where the players walk into a room and I said, you see the walls are just honeycomb with all these little holes, just about big enough you could fit your thumb in. One player just looked at me and said, nope. And
I think that was me.
Out of the room. And everybody's like,
I don't have a thing about what's going to come flooding out of those holes.
Exactly. So it's just the whole mystery. Why are those holes here? What's going to happen? I'm thinking also Kirby was like, nope, I'm leaving. Both of y'all, Eddie and Kirby were like,
you also love monkey traps.
It's like just things people are afraid of, It's something in that lizard brain from 1,000 years ago or whatever, but, what's talking about Dark Trails again, of course, what's one thing you wish you'd known before you started Dark Trails? If you wish you'd known before you started that you know now?
Oh, Jesus. That's a good question. I'm going to tell you, man, at the end of the day, once this book is out, if I took the number of hours that I've put into it and divided by, once all the costs and everything are paid for, I'll be so far in the red because I've put so much heart and, hard work into this. So I would say if you're thinking about doing something like this, because, obviously I'm vested now, there's no backing out now. So I'm in to see it to the finish, but it's a lot of work. And I would say if you're going to take on a project that's really big, I would make sure you have a couple of people helping you and know that it's not easy. There's going to be things that blow up in your face. You're going to have to keep up with other people that, you're depending on to turn in material and art and things like that. And you got to be a juggler, and I've never learned how to juggle. So it's been an experience. If I could probably go back, I might have done more of a fanzine, kind of like Reed did. Reed did something that was really smart. He kind of put the world out in fanzines, and then once he got to a good point, he did the Kickstarter and did the compilation of the fanzines. And I think that's a definitely a more manageable way to handle, creating something. At the time, I didn't want to do that at the time. I was like, I don't want to put out no damn fanzines. I want to put everything out in a damn book. And now I'm thinking I should have done fanzines. But, I'm glad I did what I have. I don't have any regrets about Dark Trails. And the only reason I don't is simply because people seem to really like it when they play it. And that's, at the end of the day, it's not about making, a ton of money, because that's just not going to happen. It's about putting out something that people not only like, but that they will actually open up and use to, fuel with their own imagination. And that's something that I know has happened a lot, and the book's not even out yet. So, my main.
But you did the damn but jokingly we call it the damn thick start, is that, or whatever the quickie rule most games. Hell, there's so much content there. People need to.
Well, the good thing about the thick start is a lot of that, like the rules. There's very few rules that were left out. So the character chapters, a lot of people might not realize this, but the character, like each character has a lot more there are a lot more abilities and powers that they'll have access to. But to try and make it easier on judges is something that I noticed. When it's your game, it's easy to run it. But when you hand 12 classes to somebody else and you expect them to wrangle, players that never played the game and a game that they're still trying to learn, that's one of the few things I saw that was kind of frustrating. I think there was too much for judges to grasp. So what we decided to do with the thick start, as it's affectionately titled, was to limit each character to just a few powers to give judges an easier way to grasp the game, and also for players. When you've got a Calavera, the Calavera, I think in the Thick Start has a few abilities, but in the full rules, she's got 3 spell-like abilities. She can sidestep. She can do a lot of stuff. So a person who's never played this character class before is going to sit here and stare at their character sheet for a minute before they tell you what they want to do, because they're trying to. So, I think that was probably a good idea. But the thing is once we hit the character chapter again to go back over it, the only thing that's really got to be done is just those extra powers added in. So parts of that book, like the rules, the adventure, things like that, are ready to be plugged into the master document. So the big thing right now is the 200 spells. If you've played DCC or you've looked at the Dark Trail spells in the bootleg edition, each one of those averages between 800 and 1,500 words. So when you multiply that by 200, that's a chunk, And just like the DCC book, everybody freaks out. Oh, this book's 3 inches thick. I don't want to play that game, They don't realize that it's the spells. Yeah, so it's the same thing, and this is the bulk of the project of the book of the spells, and we're getting into those right now. Gilbert, he's our editor, and he's just actually started working on the spells. I've already completed the 50 miracles for the Revelator. I'm getting ready to start the Montbank, their formula or recipes. So once this chapter's done, and I'm when I tell you guys I'm working like 12, 14-hour days at least a couple times a week, I am. So I'm hoping to get the spell section done, and from there I really think it's going to be downhill as far as the other chapters, because the bestiary's done. It follows a lot of the same. I kind of patterned it after the DCC book, so the chapters in the DCC book, you'll see the same number of chapters and, kind of the equivalent of what you'd find in those chapters in the Dark Trails book. So the bestiary done. There's a chapter in the DCC book on magic items. That's done. We're working on the spells now. The rules is pretty much done. The classes are pretty much done. So, like I said, it's just this one thick bastard of a chapter. It's 200 spells. But, I don't know. I don't think I ever want to write another spell once this is done. Be honest with you, I have nightmares about this chapter.
Yeah. So let me ask a follow-up. Say you had an unlimited budget for Dark Trail. Say some mysterious benefactor. We'll call him Moneybags Hurdle. What would you do? What would you do with that money?
I think that anything that I would change with Dark Trails, the actual core book, I might make it color, full color. It's just so expensive to do that, and the artwork would be more expensive. But if I could expand it, I would probably do something. Have you guys ever heard of Gloomhaven?
I'm looking at it right now.
Oh yeah.
I think that something like that would be really cool to do with Dark Trails, because those classes are kind of, I think they would work well in that kind of a situation. So if I could do, like a board game, I think that would be kind of cool, and just basically expand, maybe a little bit. Like the DCC book, I don't want to do splat books for Dark Trails. If anything, would rather people take it and say, hey, I want to do a book on the Dreamlands, or I want to do a book on a certain tribe and add some mysticism and maybe some extra class. I mean, I think that would be really cool, but I wouldn't change a whole lot, to be honest with you, if that makes sense. I would like to try and expand the world to, other things like maybe comics or things like that, because I think that the characters have enough depth to where, that it would make for some interesting reading.
Comic. That would be kick-ass.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is my hopes. My hopes are that when the game releases, that it will, hold its own and maybe catch the eyes of folks. I've got some friends that are, in various industries. So I'm going to pitch it to, other folks and see what happens. I'd also very much like to do a 5e edition of Dark Trails. I think it'll be kind of cool, because I don't think there's currently a 5e Weird West game out right now. I could be wrong, but I just think it'll be kind of cool.
Yeah, it'd be very cool.
I hear you.
I want to spread my seed.
Well, since I guess go ahead.
And, there again, I was just going to say, and it's just, I love, nothing is more cool than having somebody come up and say, man, I really dig this class or really dig this game. So, the more of that I can get out there, the better. If we could do like a 5e version of Dark Trails in a year or two and people really dug it. I mean, I just think it's kind of cool to bring people into the fold, if that makes sense.
And you might see some crossover, like people try that and then go, oh, I hear there's the original version of it. Yeah, you should check that out,
Yeah, that's true. Well, some people don't like DCC. They think it's too over the top and it's too deadly, In this day and age, it's not politically correct to kill a character. You got to let them always have that
we
exit
knew
door.
people
DCC's
that would
not that
only
way.
play 5th edition, and not just 5th edition. It had to be Adventurers League 5th edition. So it was like, man, you're really painting yourself into that narrow box of role playing.
Oh, well, yeah, I think that if you took 10 people that were diehard 5e players and you put them in one of the better DCC adventures, I think at least half of them would probably be like, yeah, I'm going to have to check this DCC game out. It was pretty cool because you guys know, I mean, if you play DCC at a con, we have a blast. It's just a fun game.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you notice our last con when you were there, we had a lot of DCC and its derivatives. We had a lot. And that's not something that we're twisting people's arms. That's what they wanted to run. That's what they wanted to play.
Yeah. I don't think it's a matter of trying to convince them. I think it's just a matter of getting them to sit at the table for 15 minutes. And then it's like, yeah, this is what I want. Because, when I first played DCC, I hated it.
Really?
Yeah, no, I was like, what the hell is this funnel shit? We had just gotten out of a Pathfinder year-long campaign, and I had this badass half-orc thief, Bill Dud Gallows. I still remember his name. And our game master was like, I'm getting tired and burnt out, so he brings out this damn DCC book, and I'm playing a farmer and a gong farmer and a turnip farmer, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I just went from playing an 8th level thief to somebody with 3 hit points. So we were all kind of stunned, once the funnel was over and we were looking at our surviving characters whose stats were just shit. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And just I don't know why. I guess I'd gotten into that mode of Pathfinder and the crunch, and for some reason, like months later, I don't know why, I picked the book up and started reading it. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. I'm sorry, Joseph Goodman. I'm sorry I hated your game.
Okay, well, kind of talking about the multimedia experience of Dark Trails. I don't know if you're a fan of the old Twilight Zone shows. Have you seen the episode? You may not remember it by name, but Still Valley. So it's the end of the Civil
give me a little story on it.
And a witchy man shows up and says, the Confederacy can win, but you have to make a deal with the devil. Oh, you've got to see that. I was just going through watching some old episodes, and I was like, this could be a Dark Trails prequel, or this could be an adventure or something like that, because it just slides in around that time period. I know it's after, but it's definitely one of those things.
No, you track down the episode name, because I'll definitely look it up and watch it. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, really, really good.
Still Valley.
Movie, TV shows with the Wild West feel, the Dark Trails. Some recommending something, so check that out for sure.
Yeah,
Still Valley.
What is it again? I'm sorry, you broke up.
Valley. But yeah.
Okay. Cool. I'll do that. I've actually been watching some. When I get bored, sometimes I'll watch. I picked up the box sets for the Wild Wild West. And a lot of those, like almost every episode, I'm like, that'd be kind of cool. There's a lot of things you can pluck out of that to make Weird West adventures from.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Matt.
Yeah, I think this is the first podcast I've ever done.
We do all ours naked.
Ever done naked.
Duh.
Well, Eddie texted me and he's like, "You don't have to put your pants on." But what Eddie didn't know is I didn't have my pants on.
The Commando podcast.
No, duh. That's right.
That sounds awesome.
Sponsored by the
Pantsless
Longview
podcast
Computer
brought to you by Eddie and Matt.
Right on. He's like, oh, don't mention me.
We're getting to the bitter end. Go ahead, Matt.
All right. Well, so yeah. Well, I'll let you go with the. I think you've already said it, but you go and kind of reiterate about the long con.
Since we're pressuring you into doing things you don't want to, like this podcast, you are more to the long con. Same deal. Anytime you want to. The long con.
Anytime.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, I'm gonna tell you, it's you guys, you did a great job. I mean, I've obviously been to a lot of different cons, larger and the smaller ones and the in betweens, and you know, I know Brendan LaSalle was as well. We were both very impressed with what you guys did and humbled by the fact that you took such good care of us. Shoot those dates to me. If I can make it happen, I'll definitely come back because I had a blast gaming with you guys.
Yeah.
We were glad to have you, man. So
I'll chalk that up to you not knowing any better.
Nah. So talking about long con and whatnot, and just probably asking really one of the more important questions of the podcast: what's your go-to drink these days?
I tell you what, most of the time it's just bourbon and Coke. But it's funny you say that because a couple of weeks ago I spent about $100 on just stuff to make different drinks with, and everything from a vanilla old fashioned to a blackberry bourbon kind of mix. I can't remember what it's called, and I'm going to be honest with you, every one of them tastes like shit. So I spent $100 on stuff and learned a valuable lesson. Did you guys ever watch a show called Justified?
Oh yeah.
Well, if you're on Instagram, the guy who played Boyd Crowder, he was also in Hateful Eight. I love this guy. He's an awesome actor. But he's on Instagram, and since the COVID thing has been going on, he makes a drink every Wednesday. He owns, I guess he's a partner in Mulholland Distillery in Los Angeles. But dude, it's just so much fun watching him mix drinks, and you can tell he's so passionate about it. But one thing I've learned is I can't mix drinks for shit, so I just stick to bourbon and Coke.
Keep it simple.
Yep, that's me.
All right.
All right,
It's
Eddie,
only
wind it
been
down,
a little
brother.
over an hour, so we would like to thank you, David, for joining us today and putting up with our chicanery.
Anytime.
All right. Well, like a 0 level character, we've got no class.
And now we got no
Bye-bye,
hit points.
podcast land.
Later, folks. Thanks, David.